Hello, BFFs. Welcome to Folklore Friday. I'm Katina from BFF Beauty, and on Fridays we just try to get together and talk about some local Colorado folklore or, some strange and unusual stuff that we talk about. So Folklore Friday happens. Kind of throw some makeup on if it's not a total failure. And we try to get all that done in about a 15-minute segment hanging out with yours truly. So my face is already primed and prepped and ready to go, just like today's story. Today being 9/11, I decided it was probably okay to just do a little step into history. We always want to visit history so we can learn from our mistakes. We're correct. And talk about a little bit of dark history here in Colorado. So, we're going to talk about a spot outside a little town called Granada, Colorado. It's called Camp Amache. Camp Amache was only in effect from 1942 to 1995. It had capacity of about 7,500 people. It housed about 7,500 people, and this camp was made for Japanese Americans. So after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, America kind of went batshit crazy, like we do every time there's a terrorist threat and we point fingers at one race or another in this whole race war that we continue to keep going on. Side note, that was another story. Anyway, the point is this statement. We hold these truths to be self-evident, I can't talk today, that all men are created equal. Thomas Jefferson said that, and it was edited by Benjamin Franklin. And all that just kind of went out the crapshoot when they made some encampments for Japanese Americans across America in 1942. So they were afraid that these Japanese were going to, pair up with people from their homeland and terrorize America because we had been bombed, mind you. So these Japanese Americans really were very loyal to being Americans, The majority of them were American citizens. In fact, about 10% of them still served in the armed forces, either as soldiers or as nurses in the women's corps, or instructors. About 10% of them still gave back to the American people because they were proud to be Americans, even though we loaded them up and took them off to camps. So this camp was one of the smallest camps in America, but the only one in Colorado. So at that point, about 120,000 Japanese Americans were taken. They were forced into these camps per FDR's executive order. Amache was the smallest one, like I said, and the only one in Colorado, but more than 10,000 people passed through there. It housed 7,597 people. About 2/3 of them were American citizens, and they still were made to be there. So it kind of sounds a little bit like what Hitler did to the Jews, doesn't it? Just a little bit like that. I mean, the only difference is these people actually had a flourishing and lovely life while they were there. Yes, they had to go to the latrine until the facilities were put up, and they had to go across the snow and wind and rain to do so until the facilities were put up. But their facilities were over 10,000 acres, 560 buildings, all crammed into 1 square mile of land. So they had like their own little community going on there, and they did a lot of things. They had shops, they had butcher shops, they processed meat, they processed grain, they had thousands of acres of farming and agriculture there. all kinds of stuff like that. And they, as a matter of fact, supplied tens of thousands of pounds of food during this war to the American people and the military. They had a silk screening shop within this encampment in Colorado, and they made colored posters for the U.S. Navy there. They had a high school. Let me tell you guys about the high school from Camp Amache. The high school had valedictorians, just like anywhere else, and they had a football team. And the football team took on the undefeated football team in the state, and it happened to be Roy Romer's team, and they won. So it was a pretty remarkable little community that the U.S. government had given them. Now, it only went on for 3 years before we realized that, you know, we were kind of being ridiculous, I guess, maybe. And it was time to let everybody go home. But I thought it was pretty remarkable that we, as American people, rounded up these people, took their homes, all out of fear that because even though they were American citizens, y'all, and they lived in California, the majority of them, we felt that they could be harmful to us and they could have loyalties to Japan. So we rounded them up. I guess the theory was basically we put a fence around our problem and monitor it until we make sure that there's no more problem. So let me tell you how they kept them in. And it wasn't even high security or anything like that. And then they had their own doctor's offices inside this encampment. They had all this stuff, like a real town. In fact, at that time, when they were at full capacity, they were the most populated town. Granada was in the state because they had all of these Japanese Americans in this encampment. And they had all kinds of stuff going on in the encampment. Like I said, doctors' offices. And so there was 6 watchtowers. They had the Arkansas River. They had canal systems. They had sewage systems. They had a water reservoir. They had everything you can imagine. Schools. In fact, the high school was the most expensive building inside this encampment. And there were people who were kind of upset that the government had taken this land because it was privately owned land at first, you know. Guys, I saw this makeup technique. I really wanted to try it. So we'll see how it goes, okay? Bear with me. It was privately owned farms and land or abandoned land that the government took and declared to make this encampment. So you can imagine that the American people were kind of mad about it, but these people still gave back so much too, because the dream, the American dream, they wanted to live the American dream. Makes me sad. Makes me sad that we treated them the way we did. But even so, they really had a very good life there. So when push came to shove and American people were getting upset about them having essentially a better life in these encampments than a lot of poorer folk were living. I mean, they were able to have a home. They lived in barracks, and the population was within that mile of land, about 50% more crowded than New York City. So it was pretty tight fit barracks living, but they had anything and everything. I don't know. Maybe there was no horror stories. There wasn't any big crime factors. Nothing bad like that going on at all. So I thought it was a really good solution to what, if America felt there was a problem, they went about it and treated people humanely. But why did we do this? Why did we just panic and treat people of a certain race like they were a terror to us? And we tend to keep doing that, which is why I wanted to bring up this story today. We tend to keep blaming a race for the actions of what's going on in our nation, when the truth of the matter is we panic every time. We panic every time, and we have to blame somebody. And the government plays off of that, y'all. I'm just going to say, the government plays off of that. I wouldn't feed into it too much. So these eyes look kind of crazy, right? Well, I saw this chick do this cool thing that I really wanted to try and see if I could do it. But if I cannot, then we'll just let it play out. Anyway, so Camp Amache eventually ended, and there's some discrepancy as to when it exactly closed, because all the last 85 people that lived there moved out in October 1945, but it didn't officially close, per the government's say, until January 27th, 1946. So these people, most of them went back to California, but the ones that didn't, about 2,000, stayed in Colorado because the people here were great, and they, the farming was amazing. They were not allowed to stay there, but you can go to Granada and you can check out the facilities that were there, what's left of them right now, because a teacher that lives in Granada has made it his class projects to take care of this place. And there's a museum. There's mostly just concrete foundations for the buildings, but there still is a water tower, a well, the cemeteries there. 31 inmates died defending our American rights while being prisoners as American citizens on their own soil. So there was also the last graduating class from there, and the valedictorian of that class gave a speech and said, after all that we have been through, after everything that they have put us through, well, do we still believe in our America? Do we still believe that this is the land of the free and the home of the brave? Do we still believe that? And as Japanese Americans, and she said, I believe we still do. I believe that we can make America great. Y'all, I don't think we deserve the loyalties of our Japanese Americans sometimes, because we went to war with Japan. We went to war when they went with that whole thing. We went to war and we treated them, American citizens, like crap, because they left Japan and wanted a life in America and turned their back on everything in Japan, and we still punish them for just being Japanese. And we continue to do that. Through every war, through every situation, we continue to do that. So I think we really need to take a look at our history and make something different happen at this point. Because this story keeps happening over and over and over again. So for 9/11, I felt this amazing story about our Camp I just forgot the name of it. Camp Amache. I had to go look. Camp Amache. I believe 9/11 is a very good time to remember that not all people from a terrorist country are in fact terrorists or oppose the American life. And we continue, generation after generation, we continue to treat it like that. So I hope we can change our ways, and this does not continue to be the next story, since that was 1940s. Here we are, 1990s, we did it again, 9/11, and then now here we are, 2020. What are we doing? Are we doing the same things? Are we going to keep living this folklore? Or are we going to change it? So I'm calling out to you guys, BFFs. Stand up, take a stand, make a change. Next year is going to be so much more amazing than what we just went through. I'm certain of it. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. This was Folklore Friday. Join me again for Cold Cases of Colorado with Katina. Check out Tara's Try Its, and we'll see you soon here at BFF Beauty. Have a great day.